Okay, so we have another elimination here at the 2026 Men's Ice Hockey Tournament at Milano Cortina at the Winter Olympics. It is Team Czechia defeating Team Denmark 3-2 in their qualification playoff. And I just wanted to say a few things. One, it's kind of concerning how Czechia was barely able to escape the Danes with a 3-2 victory. I don't know how that spells their chances for tomorrow against Canada. Number two, there are some pretty notable Czechs who went out there and produced some big points. Others who, for the most part, have been disappointing in that regard. And we're going to be diving into some of the Canucks guys that stood out in today's contest too. And then number three, big shout out over to the Danes. 2 goals on 26 shots against. Lukas Dostal was very, very good. And ultimately, this was a super entertaining hockey game that does pose some questions for the Czechs later on, but for the most part, gave us some awesome entertainment here heading into Sweden versus Latvia. So there were only 5 goals scored in this hockey game, and they were all in the second period. Opening things up, you had Marty Necas on the power play, assisted by Vancouver Canucks Filip Hronek and Roman Cervenka, the captain of the Czech team. At the ripe old age of 40 years old, Cervenka opened things up with a power play assist, but Marty Necas absolutely whistles the puck up high right by the left ear of Freddie Anderson into the top corner. It's a 1-0 power play goal. Filip Hronek, nice to see him out there on the board as well. But 4 minutes later, you have the Danes tying it up with a beautiful passing play from, I believe he's on San Jose, Joachim Blichfield. He is a really nice prospect from a few years ago that, he's now in Tappara in the Liga. Never mind. He was with the San Jose Sharks and the Barracuda for a few years before going back over to Europe a few seasons ago. Way over a point per game in the Liga this year, and for good reason. He makes a beautiful little pass out to Alexander True on the back door to give Denmark the 1-1 tying goal. This is where we start to see the goal frenzy start up, because just a minute after that, you have Jan Ruda centering the puck out in front to Vancouver Canucks center David Kampf, a guy who was planting his behind right in the crease area, right in front of the slot, just banging away as the Dane defender was on his back. Kampf frees himself up for a second. It opens up the passing lane. Ruda then throws it into the middle. Kampf with the deflection. It's a 2-1 game. And then the Czech captain, Roman Cervenka, gets himself a beautiful snipe on the rush, assisted by David Pastrnak. It becomes a 3-1 Czechia lead as he walks in and snipes it top corner on Freddie Anderson. 6 minutes after that, on the power play, Team Denmark has a beautiful tic-tac-toe passing play. It is Nick Olesen who gets the marker out in front. Blichfield, Oscar Fisker-Molgaard get the assists here, and the Danes really make things interesting. It's kind of funny because after they got the 3-2 goal, they had a beautiful breakaway opportunity. Oliver Bjorkstrand, he ends up getting stoned by Lukas Dostal on the skate. He tries to go back over across, and the goaltender gets the best of the puck. It could have been 3-3, just like that. But 3-2, these are the only 5 goals that we see in the hockey game. No goals in the third period, although Team Denmark did have some pressure, and I wanted to give some shout outs, some love over to the Vancouver guys that were doing their thing over here. Obviously, Filip Hronek, super noticeable defenseman the entire way through. He has been one of the better ones on Team Czechia. And then David Kampf, what a great story for him, finding himself on the Olympic squad after being a reject, essentially, in the Toronto Maple Leafs system. They were talking about on the broadcast how David Kampf, part of the reason he ended up leaving money on the table, rejecting his Toronto Marlies season, was because he knew he wouldn't make the Czechia Olympic team if he was in the AHL. He wanted less money, he wanted a bigger chance at being noticed, so he terminated his deal with Toronto, signed a cheap contract with Vancouver, scored 6 points in 34 games, which admittedly kind of sucks, but still. David Kampf is a reasonably responsible, defensively minded center who can win some draws and penalty kill, and the Vancouver Canucks can use help wherever it is they can get it from. Kampf was good enough to get noticed, he scored 2 assists in the first 3 games for Czechia, and now he had himself a pretty nice, solid goal on the little pass there from Jan Ruda. So big shout out over to Hronek, big shout out over to David Kampf. And speaking about former Canucks, I mean, I was kind of jump scared watching this Denmark team go out there and do their thing because I didn't realize that Nick Jensen is on the squad. Yeah, that's right. Remember him? This guy was supposed to be a top Vancouver Canucks forward back in the day, 15 years ago when he was drafted in 2011. Nicholas Jensen was always one of these guys that we penciled in as a future top player, along with the Hunter Shinkaricks of the world, the Brendan Gaunces, and the Jordan Subbans. Oh man, what a big throwback to the Vancouver Canucks of yesteryear. Frankie Corrado, Cole Castles, Anton Rodin, the list goes on and on. Nick Jensen, nice to see you again, buddy. Although your team got eliminated, unfortunately, but still. This is one of the interesting elements of the tournament so far, though. It's the fact that Team Czechia was barely able to beat Team Denmark 3-2. It's not like Denmark is the most talented, amazing NHL quality team. They have good guys. Nikolai Ehlers, of course, is a noticeable player. So is Freddie Anderson. Bjorkstrand. There are some names that do belong in the NHL. But Czechia, with all the issues they have experienced on their power plays, and with an overall lack of dangerous, offensively potent gameplay from David Pastrnak, it is starting to become a lot more concerning for Czech fans. And if you head over to the post-game thread of Denmark versus Czechia on the R-Hockey sub, you'll see a lot of comments. Canada should be worried. The whole Czech team is saving their power play for the whole tournament just to unleash it tomorrow. Surely. What do they do against Canada? Denmark is like 2 levels below them, and they still ended up shaking for the win. In 1 out of 20 games, this Czech team can win against Canada, and I doubt it's going to be that day. Pasta looks awful, and Dosti is not the Dosti from the 2024 World Championships. If you go by top, you can see over here that there are a number of conversations on David Pastrnak. I mean, take a look at this over here. As a Czech fan, I was low-key jealous of blind people. Pastrnak has been such a massive disappointment. No chemistry with anybody that he's playing with. If Zacha didn't miss the tournament, I think he would look a lot better. I'm similarly a Bruins fan, and he might be the most chemistry-reliant superstar out there. Mikhail Kempny and Pastrnak have been the worst players this tourney for Czechia. After they basically rebuilt his knee and I went to the game in DC, I remember seeing him take a basic turn on the ice commercial break and just wipe out. His leg gave out under him completely. There is a really interesting fragility of the human body element that comes out there. So, David Pastrnak, man, he is getting called out. Czechia being called one of the more disappointing teams in the tournament so far. Them and Sweden. We'll see whether or not the Swedes can take advantage of their standing against Latvia later today, of course. But I'm concerned with how poorly Czechia is playing. They have a lot of room to improve. Zacha wouldn't fix it all, but goodness do they need him to fix their center depth. Filip could have also been an option too, but then again, I don't think that guy's really available these days. Necas is the only dude who is even remotely noticeable, aside from Pasta, who was more noticeable in a bad way. Pasta and Dostal having the game of their lives might just be enough to win, but even then, LOL. So it doesn't seem like Czech fans are too optimistic heading into the Canada game, but they did find a way to squeak out a win against Denmark, which in and of itself maybe isn't the biggest accomplishment, but still, a win is a win. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about David Pastrnak and his lack of total game-changing offensive potential in this tournament so far? His point production, 3 points in 3 games, 4 points in 4 with today's assist. It's fine, but from watching the games itself, you can notice that there certainly is an element of that missing. How do you feel about the way he has played so far? What are your thoughts on David Kampf and Filip Hronek going out there and scoring for Team Czechia over here? Big goals, big assists, and a win for the Czechs over the Danes. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.